Hi everyone, welcome to the Grade Academy webinar, how to maximize your Leaving Cert grades. There are people flooding in at the moment, so if you still are without your cup of tea, go to the kitchen, pop on the kettle and make sure you have it ready for a couple minutes time, and we'll bring in Bernard and we'll start the whole conversation. This is Andrea. Andrea is going to be answering all of your questions during the session. Anything you have about Grade Academy, or if you want us to ask Bernard a question in the Q&A, pop it into the chat or into the Q&A section. We'll get to it. We'll have all your questions answered and she'll be there, keyboard ready. There's still a good few people coming in at the moment. It's great. We have loads. And for any of the 100 people that just joined in the last 30 seconds, welcome to the Grade Academy webinar. We are delighted to have you all on board. We know you're incredibly busy at the moment with all the exams going on and the orals. So we really do appreciate you taking the time to come on. And we are delighted to have Bernard from perform.ie with us tonight. Bernard is absolutely fantastic. You get a taste of what he has to offer there now in a minute. But as I said a while ago, and for the 50 people that just joined, if you have any questions in the meantime, please pop your questions in. This is Andrea. Andrea will answer all of the questions in the meantime. Hopefully the kettle is boiled and the tea is brewing. I hope it's Barry's and it's not Lions. Pop in the milk and we'll start more or less straight away. That's coming from a Cork man there now. I think we will more or less get started. So it's 7:02. I'll get up the presentation. Okay, can everybody see that? Andrea, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see that? Perfect, there's a thumbs up, happy days. Okay, we'll start. So thank you all so much for coming today to this Grade Academy webinar. It's the first Grade Academy webinar that we have run, and it's titled Maximise Your Leaving Cert Exam Grades. And we're delighted to have Bernard O'Rourke here with us tonight from perform.ie. Bernard is an absolute expert in exam performance, and I'm really looking forward to his masterclass in which he's going to chat to you about how you can improve your grades for the exams coming up in a couple of months. Just to give you a bit of an introduction and as to how the webinar is going to run today, my name is Dara. I'm the founder of Grade Academy. At the start, I'm just going to talk a little bit about Grade Academy itself, why we're all actually here tonight. And then thereafter, we'll bring in Bernard. He'll give you your talk on how to maximize your exam grades. He'll talk you through a good bit of visualization and also some takeaways that you can all bring to your study and to the exams itself. Now, please pop in your questions into the chat. Andrea is there manning it. She will answer any immediate questions or she'll give them to us at the end, where myself and Bernard will talk. We'll get all your questions answered and we'll have you ready for those exams come June. Now, it is worth staying till the end because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be running through some of the courses that we have that might help you bring your grades up. We're going to be giving away a pretty substantial discount to the courses that I think you'll all be very happy with. And we're going to be giving one of you a prize worth €215. So that's definitely not to be missed. So to start things off, I'm going to talk very quickly about Grade Academy and why it is something that Leaving Cert students have been using over the last 6 to 8 months. Now, to do that, I'm going to have to go BC. Now, I'm not talking before Christ, I'm actually talking about before COVID. This was a time where students went to school, they got all of their information from their teachers, they learned themselves, they studied, and everybody was happy with the way the system was running. Now, I think we all know what happened next. COVID came in, and unfortunately, those channels were paused. Students couldn't get access to the teachers, and teachers couldn't get access to the students. Now, being in the education market ourselves, we saw the impact that this had on students, teachers, and parents alike, and that's why we have this upside down smiley face up here. Now, what we wanted to do, being in the education space already, is that we wondered, would we be able to develop something that would bridge the gap between students and their learning, and basically making the whole process for all of the stakeholders easier and make it, so that COVID couldn't impact it. And we came up with Grade Academy. And since we launched Grade Academy 6 months ago, it really has taken off, and we're starting to see that smiley face or the frowny face being turned upside down again. Now, what we really wanted to do was develop an online learning platform that students could use to really increase their exam grade. The idea behind it was that we wanted to provide content that wasn't just there, but it was really condensed and concise to really focus on exam learning. Now, that's done through plenty of video lessons and notes that accompany those lessons, in which students could access anywhere, anytime, and on any device. And the beauty behind it is that students can go through it at their own pace. Whether you're studying Irish and all of the Ashta, or whether you want to study history with our famous Leaving Cert history teacher, Patrick Hickey, it's all there. And speaking of our teachers, we really have gotten together a phenomenal group that have developed these outstanding courses. Our teachers are the best of the best. They've authored books like Revise Wise, Less Stress, More Success. They've advised State Examinations Commission, and they've also developed revision courses for many years and have been delivering them in person, and now they're delivering them online. So the three main things that we really wanted to nail down on when it came to developing Grade Academy was expert teachers. I think we have that. And we also want to provide students with on-demand learning. Look, COVID is there, things are getting better, thanks be to God. But we wanted to really try and revolutionize the secondary education market through this online content and the premium content. And finally, it's extremely exam focused. These courses are developed so that whether a student enrolls in them in September or 2 weeks before the exams, they can still extract the same amount of value from it with regard to the exams. And so far, the results have really spoken for themselves. We've had nearly over 3,000 students use the platform, and they've all reported an average grade increase of 16.2%, which is really, really fantastic. And that's since enrolling in the courses. And 97.6% of them prefer our style of learning when compared to traditional tuition. So look, the results have been really, really great, and students have really taken to online learning. In terms of the platform itself, we have 17 core courses, 12 subjects, and best of all, first hour of every course is free. So students can get a feel for it. Parents can also see what the courses are like before enrolling. And we also have loads of other content on the platform with our exam prep series that was very, very popular, and they can get an idea of the curriculum before committing to the actual course itself. Now, it's definitely worth saying to the end, as I mentioned, we're going to be giving away a basic package worth €215, and we're also going to be giving everyone a pretty substantial discount that they can use for a limited period of time. Now, I am absolutely delighted to have Bernard from perform.ie with us here tonight. I've gotten to know Bernard over the last while, and he truly is an expert in the area. He's been at this for years. He's coached hundreds of students, not just in the Leaving Cert, but also professionals, really take to exams. And rather than showing them what to learn in the exam, he really shows them, how to deal with exam stress, visualization. He's published articles, he's published journals, and he's also advised the Department of Education. So we really could not be in better hands tonight. So look, without further ado, I'll be delighted to bring on Bernard. So just double check that he's ready to go. He'll share a screen. The whole thing should take about 30 minutes, and thereafter we'll run through about a 10-minute Q&A, and we'll have you done for 8 o'clock for the Champions League. So Bernard, can we hear you loud and clear?
You can, Dara. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. It's all up to you.
It's like the Eurovision. Get 12 points maybe. So
beautiful.
Hello, everybody. My name is Bernard, as Dara has so kindly introduced me. And we just need to get our slideshow moving. Bear with us.
Bernard, what you might be better off doing, see the resume slideshow there?
Yeah.
Click that.
Okay, there we are.
Beautiful.
Okay. Apologies, folks. And I'm glad to be able to come this evening and talk to you about what traveling through this Leaving Cert challenge is all about. And the first thing I'd like you to do, if you could be so kind as to help me with a bit of interaction that doesn't involve doing very much, is just to close your eyes for a few seconds. Not too tight, but just close them. And think of yourself coming back to a point where you're waiting to do an exam. For the older people in the audience, I know there's some parents around, that might be a while ago, but your memories will be good enough to remember. So what I'd like you to do now is open your eyes. The exam room. The exam room is a place of some considerable consequence for everybody doing the leaving. And it's a place that inspires dread amongst lots of people, because it's a place where you go into, you're on your own, you have your pencil, your pen, and you're there to do something that is, in fact, very, very difficult to do typically. So when the exam is in progress, you're there for maybe 2-3 hours, and you're working your way through delivering as best you can all the things that are on your mind in terms of answering questions. And with a lead up that is a year, 2 years, really, when it comes down to it. And with everybody in the audience at home and in the family, willing you on to do very well. But it is something that everybody understands as something that isn't easy, and that doesn't come easy, and that is something that no matter how hard people work at it, can go as well as it needs to, or as badly as you don't want to know. So it's a difficult space. And the thing is, it's not exactly something that is anyway hard to appreciate from anybody's point of view, especially students. So the exam room is an important place to be able to be prepared to go into, and be prepared to go into to perform. So in relation to what it means to understand what it means to be stressed, or how to feel about the stress that might be standing outside the room and preparing to go in, one of the things that you have to be prepared to appreciate very easily and well is that not only are you not alone with all the people that are there, but it's not exactly an unusual place to be. In fact, many, many thousands of people in Ireland every year do the leaving, 60,000 more or less, 60,000 families, and many millions around the world do them. So it's a very common and shared experience, and one that you can, well, learn more about beyond the content of the courses you're taking, and improve on simply by paying attention to what it is to say, well, I know my English, or I know my maths, and I'm improving at that. I'm learning all the time with the help of my teachers at school and with the Grade Academy. But I need to understand how I can reliably perform in exams. So that's where we'd like to kind of work on it for a little bit this evening. So the webinar part that I'm responsible for this evening is going to be a few sections, not too many, because I only have about a half hour. I want to talk you through what is a very, very, very short history of exams, just so you have a little bit of background. I want to talk to you about how to understand your own skill profile around exams, because again, this is not about the content, this English or the maths or the geography or whatever, but it's about you and your ability to do in exams, and actually you've got a lot of experience with that. I want to talk to you about how you know your subject matter, because it's a very, very important tool and a skill set to have when you're trying to get ready and focus on getting ready to do your best when the time comes. I talk a lot to students about practice. And I talk a lot to students about practice of things that they've been involved in, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's golf, whether it's football, hurling, whatever it might be, because the carryover from things people are familiar with beyond doing the leaving is very often very helpful, because you can understand and appreciate what it means to practice and practice well. So I'll finish the webinar session with a few pointers in terms of what it means to close out and bring it all together. So here we are, a very short history of what is a very, very long history. If you ask yourself the question, how long is How long have exams been going on? Well, in Ireland, they've been going on quite a while. I go back very many years. The Irish Department of Education have been doing exams since it was established, and before that it was handled by other people around England. There's been exams going on in Oxford and Cambridge, all over England as well, and indeed all over the world when you look at it. The interesting thing about exams is they're not new, and they've been around for longer than you want to think about. How long? Well, in China, for example, they've been around for, well, 2,000 going on 4,000 years. Think about it. Exams pretty much as we know them, and pretty much doing the same things for all the people who are having to experience the challenge of exams, and indeed their families. Some years ago, a Japanese academic wrote a book about the Chinese exams and the history of them. That's the title of the book, China's Examination Hell, the Civil Service Examinations of Imperial China. And it's interesting to share the sense of why he'd write a book and call it, or give it that name. Well, the truth of the matter is, exams have been causing challenges and indeed stress and trouble for students and parents and families for a long time in many different countries, in many different circumstances, and with more or less the same routine. You go into exam room, you get an exam paper, and you do your best to answer the questions. There are some pictures of the Imperial exam halls, for there are very many of them in China. You can see over here on the left upper, the little cubicles. You can see over here, the local chief mandarin checking on all the people doing the exam. He would have been the guy setting it. And you can see down here, the people trying to work their way through with their servants, perhaps down the front, helping them out or keeping their food going. The days might have lasted all day or 3 days. And the famous question that they were all asked one time for 3 days, and only one question on the paper when they turned it over was, write all you know. Not an easy question to answer, but you had 3 days to do it. And a lot of people didn't last the course, or at least last the exam, because it was just too hard. So there you are. One takeaway from this is exams have been around a long time. People have been challenged by them for a long time in many different places, in many different ways. So it's not something that you need to fret unduly about having to start into what is a very important set of exams, the Leaving Cert, that are very consequential in terms of what it means to progress to university or wherever you might want to go. But the thing is, the skill set is something that people have had to focus on for very many years. So they're used almost everywhere in one form or another. And as a tool, typically they're meant to record achievement, but that really isn't something that people appreciate very much. The people running the state exams would say they monitor standards, but the truth of the matter is the consequential part of the whole equation is that they're used for making very, very important decisions for your next step in life after school. University places in the regional colleges, places in the institutes of education, the ITs. And it's very, very challenging when you're up against something that has the feel of a take it or leave it, one shot at it kind of proposition. It's important when you come to look at your exam skill set, and maybe nobody's talked to you about that before. But what I'd like you to appreciate is that you have a lot of exam experience. There's things going on that are important to kind of figure out and do something with, doubt being one of them. It's important to look at common mistakes. Now, I won't be able to go through all of them, but we can have a tilt at a few common ones. And it's very important to understand that this is all about process, and the process has a relationship with the results, and perhaps not the way you might like to think about that. So appreciating your exam experience. As a Leaving Cert student, and I know some of you are in 5th year, but a lot of you are in 6th year, you've been at school doing maybe 7 or 8 subjects for 6 years. You've done lots of tests and exams. More than you can perhaps remember, but enough to be able to take stop and debrief yourself on what you've been doing with exams, how you've been getting on. There's a tremendous power, indeed a need, and an undeveloped skill in debriefing yourself after every exam you do, and to be able to reflect on what it means to take something away from that and figure out what it means for you to do better the next time. So the reason the mocks were introduced a long time ago was simply for that reason, to give yourself experience where you wouldn't have otherwise got it. And in a sense, that was closer to the real day, the day the Leaving Cert came and you're in the room for 3 hours answering questions on, well, English or maths or whatever it might be. But it's very powerful for you to be able to appreciate that you've been doing exams not only in school, but indeed in other places. Anybody that studied music, whether you ever get to the Feis Cole or anything like that, but you've been doing great exams perhaps. If you've been doing arts, the same with, you know, paintings, whatever it might be. And anybody that's played sports has been basically undergoing certain kinds of tests. Can you score a penalty? Can you put a puck over the ball, over the bar for a point, off a free? And it's important to try and have a sense that those other kinds of experience have an awful lot to tell you about the way you can consolidate your ability to manage yourself in exams. But there's something at a high level. You've loads of experience, and that might help you, but indeed it might make you a little bit anxious because you may not have been enjoying that kind of experience. But the thing that obviously is very important is that it's crucial that you have the ability to learn what it is you need to learn, to understand what you can do to improve your ability to perform. The reason performing exams has that label is simply that it's very, very powerful thing to understand. I may know my Leaving Cert English, I may know my Leaving Cert Maths, but I still may be very concerned and indeed less skilled than I'd like to be at performing in an exam. It's like any sport, and you could call it a sport if you could be so mindless, I suppose, to think that, you know, such a challenging thing can be put up as a sport. One of the big problems people have with exams is that they doubt themselves an awful lot. And the question I'd ask you is, you know, do you know where your doubt monkey is? And if it's on your shoulder, it's in a place you don't want it to be. Doubt is very normal. I can't do this. I'm not sure about. Think of all the things that you talk to yourself about, and we'll get onto language maybe and self-talk later on. But doubt is very normal, but it can be very ruinous if it's not left unchecked, if it's left unchecked. And managing doubt is a skill, and it's a skill that can be learned. It's not very hard to learn it, and it means effectively finding the monkey that's on your shoulder and learning how to talk to them. In fact, learning how to tell the monkey to go away. I sent an image to somebody recently where we were doing some work and we were struggling with, or the lady was struggling with, the very monkey we're talking about. And so I sent her a WhatsApp with a picture of a monkey running down the road. I said, you know, Karen, this is exactly what we need to make sure is happening and that the monkey keeps running, basically. So the sense of you being nervous about things, the sense of you being uncertain about things, there's a need to turn that into a form that says, there's something I can work on here, something that will make a very big difference to me. And one of the things is to stop thinking or having too many thoughts about what it means to fail. My son Dan used to play, well, he still plays his games, but when he was younger, he was always coming to me and say, Dad, I can't manage this game. You know, I can't get to the next level. And I kept trying to reassure him somewhat that the whole point of the game, and most of you have played games on computers by this stage, is to get to the next level. And in fact, that's the game. When you understand that and see that the challenge is being set for you to get there, less to get in your way and stop you from enjoying the game or getting to the next level, you'll have achieved something very powerful in terms of being able to understand how to manage yourself in exams. Games, as you experience them on computers, are exams of sorts. Ones you're much more comfortable with, and ones you wouldn't think, maybe except Dan, I suppose, years ago with Mario, that they're actually exams that he would struggle to kind of appreciate, that they're not easy to do. In fact, they're hard at times. And that's why they get so much fun out of them, the kids. People make an awful lot of common mistakes in exams. And this is something that we could talk the whole evening about, and we'd be here for maybe till the morning. And it's surprising. And, you know, I've picked a few of them, and I picked the more obvious ones, and I picked the ones that you could say, oh no, they can't be common mistakes, Bernard. They're too just, well, obvious. Well, the thing is, you know, you'll always be told that one of the problems people have is they don't read questions. They're in the stress situation of an exam, and very often they don't read the question as well as they need to. There's no getting away from that, and it's just very, very common, but it's something you can prepare to do something about and avoid as a problem. And indeed, as an awkward consequence of what? If you don't read the question, you're not going to be able to answer it. It's very, very difficult to answer a question without having read it and understood maybe the structure of it, without parsing a complex one to be able to find out all the bits so that you can make sure that your answer has all the right information. If you're doing an essay, for example, to be clear that all the points are going to be addressed somewhere through the text of a, you know, a long essay that could be 45 minutes of very powerful writing at very, very clipped speed. Decision making in an exam is also a common problem. You're up against maybe having to choose which questions. You're up against having to choose which order of questions. And again, sometimes it can be very difficult to do that and do that well. And again, it's something you can think about, get organized around, and be prepared as a streamlined skill to do better when the time comes. One of the other awkward questions or awkward common mistakes is when you're shook for questions to answer. And you have 4 questions on the paper, and you do 3 hoping that you'll be able to do well and leave the 4th one alone. I smile when I think about this one, and I'd hope that you can understand that I'm put that there for a reason. It happens. It happens too often. So it's impossible to get 100% when you only have 75% of the marks on the table by taking only 3 questions when you need to do 4. Hear me, please. If you were looking at management books, and probably most of you haven't yet, the human resource books talks about hygiene issues. And hygiene issues are those things that are supposed to be necessary to be around to do okay, but not necessarily going to help you do better. You know, so you might need a nice office to work in so you can perform, but having a better one mightn't get you to perform any better. So it's sort of neutral often. And that's why the term came in. It was kind of necessary, but don't expect too much after that. So there are things that might not help you, but that can kill your performance by getting in the way. I told Ara the story of my own Leaving Cert and getting on my bike to Ringsend here in Dublin on the very last day when we did our honours chemistry. And the purpose of going to Ringsend to do the chemistry was to find out where my friend was, who I shared a lot with and desk with, and think in those days, sometimes the desks were shared. And I went to Jared to say, Jared, where are you? What's wrong? Where have you been? And he said, I'm getting ready for our exam tomorrow. He said, Jared, is this morning and it's over. You'd be surprised at how many times people take a lot for granted with exams. And maybe that's an example that doesn't happen too often, but it happens. And getting there on time and properly prepped with all the right stuff, you can't underestimate what it means to go to a place and be psychologically prepared to perform when it gets there. If you leave it too late, you get there under stress, something happens on the way, stress can mount up. The whole ability to create a bubble for yourself, just like a professional sportsman would do if they were going to a football match. So you think of the Man United players getting ready for a match tonight, they don't have their phones on, and probably at this point, they're in a bubble. And you have to find a way of managing yourself through effectively something like that. Not listening to too many people saying, oh, this exam is going to be terribly hard. Develop your own skill set around managing your own bubble. So when you get there, you're on time, you're prepped, and you're insulated somewhat from anything else other than what it means to be ready to do what you need to do, which is deliver. Because at that point, you're ready to deliver, and the only thing in your way is being allowed to work through what you've done and deliver it on the day. So those hygiene issues and Jared's story, so you might remember that. One of the important things to understand about exams and exam results, and it may seem bizarre to say it, is that the key to getting a result is to lose the result. And what do I mean by that? Well, you need to focus on the process. The golf major, the Masters, started today, and all the golfers there will be thinking about winning it. And the ones that are really going to do well are only thinking about one thing, one shot at a time, focusing on the process, not worrying about whether they get the result they so much desperately want, which is to win the competition. So if you're scared or wondering about whether you're going to get 565 points to do law in Trinity College, and that's on your mind more than the exam in front of you, it's not going to help. You know that already, I don't need to tell you. But the thing is, the stress in the lead up to exams, that very often is the destabilizing factor in what it means to undermine your preparation time, undermine your preparation tasks, and get in the way of being able to work well, study well, prepare well, see where you're going, and get there on the day and do what you need to do. The process is terribly, terribly powerful and important. It's a function of knowing what you need to know, believing that you know it, which is very important, and I'll get back to this in a while. And that is a base for being able to deliver. But the process is all that matters really when it comes down to it. Have your material, have your belief in the material you have, even if you don't have all the material you'd like or you need, and get there with the wherewithal to deliver it on the day. No questions after that. Knowing your subject matter. Well, the presumption is when you're going into exam, you've studied a long time. And in fact, if you do leaving, you've studied for 2 years. And that's tough. Tough 2 years to go through and to have an exam coming on the end of it, which many people find to be, well, maybe not needed anymore, whatever it is. We're not going to talk this evening about the whys and maybes of the Leaving Cert and its development in the future. Because it's not the time for you to be thinking about that. It's more for you to be thinking, well, it is as it is, and this is what I have to go through. We might have a chance through the questions to talk about the Leaving Cert and calculated grades, but forgive me if I park that for a moment to keep on our little track. What I want to talk to you about is how you know your subject and how you understand assessment to be, and indeed what you can do to be effectively your own assessment expert. So I'm bypassing all the teachers that learned that in college when they're doing their HDIP, or if they're primary teachers, they would have learned how to do it, you know, in St. Pat's or Mary Immaculate or wherever it might have been. But the thing is, you can learn a lot about assessment. And in fact, you've been doing assessment in a lot of ways, in ways that you mightn't even appreciate, for as long as you can probably remember. I want to show you what it means to learn the exam game, which is something that I can suggest is one of the drills you can take away from our webinar this evening. So, your curriculum geography. What I'd like you to be able to think you can do, if you haven't done it in a detailed way already, is to take the curriculum you have in any given subject, and at this stage you're on the flight path to the exam, so you should be clear enough in your mind, if not already on paper, where you are with all your subjects, because at this stage you're pretty much through the learning part down to the flight path management and getting ready to do what you need to do in exams. But it helps to map your curriculum and to know what it is to do that. So you might take the book that is the best book for maths that has all the bits in it and check off the contents pages. So you might get your own Excel sheet and do a list for yourself, or you might have something given to you by a teacher. But I want to leave you with a few images in terms of what it means to work your way through thinking about this without getting too wrapped up in anything other than an exercise that is helpful. There's a sort of a screen grab for Ireland from Google Earth. It's always very nice to look at, but it's kind of interesting. Let's assume that Ireland was our curriculum. And you can see lots of things with that map. There are places in that that look very hilly. There are places in that that are full of water. There are places in that that are uninteresting, maybe and fairly flat. Oh, forgive me now if I'm looking like I'm not tilting and saying where you live in the country is that uninteresting or not somewhere you should go. But if you were to get to know Ireland the way you need to have your curriculum detail mapped for you, that detail that's there isn't helpful because all you get is the picture. This detail isn't so helpful, even though it's getting to the point where you could say, well, Waterford looks like a nice place. It's got a great golf course and it's not very big and there's loads of space and everything, but it's still not necessarily the detail. Now we're getting down to see places, well, maybe there are interesting places. That's the Cliffs of Moher. Nice place to go to, interesting place to see, dangerous place if you don't know what you're doing when you get there. And the thing is, the favorite place for lots of people in Dublin to get an ice cream is Teddy's and this is the kind of place in your curriculum you don't really want to spend too much time in, the place you like. A lot of people spend a lot of their study time avoiding the hard parts, which is the topography of the difficult places on the contour map. The places that look like they're hard to kind of reach, that you won't be able to get through so much is around, the places you really don't want to go to, wherever they might be. And the reality of it is you need to know the detail. So I leave you that as a sort of mental image of what it means to try and translate that into, well, do I know all my maths? In terms of an outline, in terms of a project management chart, whichever which way you want to think about it, you need to find your own model, okay? So the map details, in terms of the contours, you need things you can rely on. You need to be able to know that you're getting to know all the stuff you need to know, which is everything really. All the things that are there that are on your syllabus. You've got Department of Education and State Exam Commission documents to help you. You've even got grading schemes, marking schemes to help. They're all the tools of the trade, if you like, of getting ready for all these exams. So, you know, all the things are there, but the thing to avoid is focusing on the interesting things when you're studying. Watching out for the important things and watching out for pretty much everything. Trying to avoid getting focused only on the things you want to work on. And it's so easy to do. So another little visualization exercise. Assessment is everywhere. To my mind, it's something that we sort of have a skill at, or maybe we don't. But when you think about it, nearly everywhere you can be in the world is assessment. So you don't need to close your eyes on this one, but think of some assessment examples quickly. 1, 2, 3. If you ever watched a movie, you've looked at it and probably thought that's a bad movie. You won't look at that again. Or a book, I'll read it and I'll tell other people about it because it's great and it has a lot of things going on it that I really like. They're kind of forms of assessment. If you've had a takeaway lately, and lots of people have, you'll know whether you liked it or not. Again, you're talking about routine, everyday forms of, well, evaluating things to say whether they're good or not. You know, people look at phones and say, well, this one's better than the other. I like Apple because, and Samsung not because at all. They'll talk about the apps and review them. Sneakers the same. We have tons of them in the house at the moment and maybe too many, and all of them have value according to somebody. And of course, everybody loves their games on their computers, but some have preferred games because they suit them better or they like them better for one reason or another. So assessment as a skill is something that is actually kind of common, except when it gets to education and your preparation for exams, you might think, oh, I know nothing about assessment. Wake up, you know a lot more than you think. So how do you become an assessment expert? Well, a big part of it is to become an expert in assessing where you are with your exams. With your experience doing exams, a big part of being able to take stock is to know in a very detailed way, I would believe and suggest, to keep a track of your own grade history, your own exam history, and the strengths and weaknesses you've had in previous exams, to be able to build your own sense of your skill profile with exams and do something about honing the strengths that you do have, and most particularly addressing the weaknesses that you see or maybe can find. You know, I get overly nervous and I can't perform, or I make mistakes when I'm there in the room that I wouldn't have made otherwise, or when I make decisions, I'm not sure what I'm trying to do and or I have blockages or whatever it might be. They're all things that if you can surface, you can address. And the very important things that you need to do is to start. Any form of intervention with people takes the individual as its starting point. So while you might share it with your friends or with your students, the thing is you need to know yourself in terms of the skills that you have and where it leaves you on the agenda of developing the things that you need. It's not that difficult, but it is far from an easy thing to do if you don't attempt it. In fact, it's not so difficult at all. I like to talk to people about the exam game. And sometimes I encourage students to get together in maybe groups of 2 or 3 and effectively start doing exams, developing exams, becoming their own state exam commission. Why? Well, the thing is, it works. It works really well to develop your own Leaving Cert exam questions, to find out what questions you should be trying to develop. Now, there's loads of them there already because, you know, they're there for you in websites, they're there for you in past papers, they're there for you to beat the band, really. But the thing is, what you need to be able to understand is how questions are set, why they're set the way they're set, and learn about that process. Now, I don't need you to be the expert to get a job in the State Exams Commission tomorrow, but it's very important to understand effectively the rules of the game, how you would develop a marking scheme. So you're asking questions, you're talking to yourself, and you're trying to understand what it means that this game is about and hone your skill about saying, I know how to manage myself when it comes to understanding the skills I need. A big thing is to practice answer drills to time. And I'll get back to that in a minute. A very big part of that is to find a way of evaluating and assessing the answers. And you might get your help from teachers, you might get your help from your co-students, or indeed your parents at times. But it's important that you do these things. It's important that you debrief from this process your understanding of where you are with these things and give yourself a leg up in terms of what it means to address whatever weaknesses that might be there. Because there will be some, and there will be some effectively for everybody. I work with a student who was heading for late 500s, and he had a lot of work to do to even understand where he was with certain things like this. And it wasn't that he was worried about getting 400 or 450. He was worried about not getting nearly 570 or whatever it was, because 5 points wider away. So it's important to look for the pointers to fix things. Practice is something that people talk about, but very often don't understand. And I'd like you to think of what it means to practice in a deliberate way. A deliberate way. So don't just practice anything. Like a lot of people study and you wouldn't know what they've learned from the study. They're just happy to have studied for an hour and think that's the end of it. But the truth of the matter is, when it comes down to studying, and indeed when it comes down to doing exams, the key skill is to hone the skill of delivering. And that requires practice. If you're learning how to play golf, if you're learning the piano, you're learning how to send a slitter over a bar 50 meters away, you would be practicing day and night if that's what you were inclined to want to do. So what do you practice with the drills? Well, you practice what you need to perform, how you need to perform it, with the conditions in which you need to perform, time, for example, and before you need to perform. And the thing is, and keep doing it until you know and trust yourself that you can perform when it matters. So you're trying to practice anything that you think will improve your performance. A couple of things I'll single out is to harvest marks and working maybe with stress. Harvesting marks is maybe a strange concept, but it means a lot because, you know, in what you're trying to do is gather marks, whichever which way makes sense on the day, depending on the structure of the exam, the questions structures, the time allocation for each. It can get very difficult to know how to approach something that has 4 questions, and each question might have maybe 3 or 4 sections with different mark allocations. And all of a sudden then, if you're relying on mental arithmetic in an exam, you are up against it. So to take marks against the marking schemes that you are there, and to take marks against the time are 2 of the critical things. You of course have some chance to understand the marking, and you have loads of chances to understand what it means to work with time. But time then becomes an interesting kind of thing, because it's very often difficult to know the time chart you have when you're answering your question. So time charts may be a concept that you haven't seen before, but let's just develop it just a little bit. And the one thing I'd say before we go and look at it is that exam time is not the time to be looking at timing yourself in exams. If you haven't prepared for this and understand what it means to manage it in terms of what it means to get marks, it's later than it should be, and it may be too late altogether. So let's say we have a simple exam, English or history, good ones to think about, and you have 4 questions due, 45 minutes each, 3 hours exam. You think, I'll do question 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's the ones I'm going to pick. And I work through time and marks. They're the 2 axes left, you know, top and side, or side and bottom. And the blue line is the marks you're getting as you're maneuvering along through the 45 minutes. Well, it sort of works like that. Then it sort of doesn't, depending. So it's important that you understand how to harvest marks in the kind of exam you're working with, because sometimes it works different. And sometimes it even works when it's not supposed to work the way I'm going to show you. But here's the thing. Question 1. It's a question that needs basically, like most English essay questions, for example, a strong opening. You're getting your marks set more or less in terms of its general range within the first paragraph even. Something very difficult maybe to appreciate. But it needn't go in a straight line. In fact, it may not easily or often go in a straight line, and that most of the time you're gathering marks, you're gathering quicker at the beginning because it's getting clearer to the people assessing, notwithstanding that they have marking schemes, that you're an A student or a B student or whatever it is, and your mark, whether deliberately or consciously, is beginning to be set, and not exactly in stone, but set. Question number 2, you're thinking, I'm struggling with this one a little bit. The thing is, you know, I've gone over time. Question number 3, I'm not sure about altogether. You see there's plateaus there where you won't say, well, you know, after that, we're not getting much value out of it. At this point, you're not getting much value out of it, but you've gone into the next bit. And you're taking away very, very rich pickings from this part. And of course, if you really get it wrong and come back to the 3 questions out of 4, and you take away the 4th question, the 3rd question may be plateauing at a way that actually adds very little to it altogether. So it's very important that you understand and pay attention to your teachers, to the way it works or the way you think it works, and figure out what it means to manage yourself through this space. If some of the stuff you're doing has this kind of format, this kind of result basically has that flat part that wastes time here and does damage there. You're running out. And you can't afford to do that. Not at all. You won't get 100% if you're answering 3 questions when you should be doing 4, or 3.5 when you should be doing 4, or avoiding going near 4 because, well, you don't know the answer. One of the things I've been very successful at doing is teaching kids how to answer questions they know nothing about. It's always been a joke or a running joke, because it's very important to be able to have the confidence to attempt questions when you're stuck. The stress that we want to maybe mention, and Dara, we're getting a little bit over time, but I have a couple more minutes left. The stress that we want to really mention right now, not so much the lead up, because that's a different day's work, but in the exam room, a lot of things can happen in the exam room that effectively are and can get more stressful than you really want them to be. It's stressful enough going in, but very often you can hit a wall or you can get stuck with a block. A big part of what it means to do that, to overcome it, is to understand how to talk to yourself, question why you might be having a problem, and begin to have a dialogue that gets around the things that are problematic. I find that very helpful. I have always, and lots of people do doing exams. And it means talking to yourself and less having dialogue with that monkey. Breathing and those things that you would get if you were looking at doing meditation courses, they help and work an awful lot in terms of what it means to stay steady in an exam. As in beginning to resort to things like mind maps or your plan when the time comes you feel like you're getting stuck and you need to just doodle to find out what it means to move on and make progress again where you got stuck. Sometimes it's necessary, but it's not necessarily advisable very often to just park something and progress somewhere else. But you need to understand what it means to have fallback routines as structural ways of managing yourself through problems like that. We can't go into them in terrible detail today, but I need just to open your mind to what it means to be understanding what stress in the exam room is about. Sometimes if you want to practice essay type exams, and going back to the mark harvesting, a point I want to make, and that's really all I wanted to say, was that if you're opening, the reason why copywriters get paid so much for developing advertising is that they can manage to get a whole message over in one line. Guinness is good for you is the old one, but I'm sure you have loads of other ones for the things that you like, whether it's Nike sneakers or whatever it might be. But the thing is, you know, there's no app to allow you to be able to kind of take your exam question that you might have mocked up and see what your result was going to be, sort of getting your teacher or whatever. But the thing is that you need to appreciate is that if there was an app, it'd be kind of like Shazam, where you play the bit of the music at the beginning and you get a fix on what it is that the song is. And one of the key drills to do for anything that involves essay type questions is to practice developing the opening and give it to somebody to look at. Practice and practice and practice getting the one paragraph that opens the thing. And you'd be surprised what happens with that. It'll give you confidence to know that you've started the right way. It'll give the examiner the impression that you've read the question, you understand the question, indeed you've got an answer, and by the looks of it, it's a very good answer. Carry on. And if you're lucky, maybe the examiner has stopped thinking about your remark after that because it's in its head already. Don't rely on that, but it's there to be. So a little bit of an action plan, and it's not so much an action plan, it's just a proposition. A big part of what I talk to you about is talking to yourself and listening to yourself and not the monkey. It's very important that your expectations are very practical, and that you have developed through the things we've talked about your own very bomb-proof process for working and managing yourself in the exam room and before it. And bear in mind that the result isn't allowed in the exam room. The result is not allowed in the exam room. If you're thinking about that, you're thinking about the wrong thing. So the pressure proposition is your process, your faith in the process, and your ability to understand what that faith allows you to be. Composed. So you're on the route to composure. For composure, an exam room is your best friend, no doubt about it. And you have to, again, I'd say, bomb-proof your exam process. Develop one with help through the Grade Academy, through people like myself, to have a process that you rely on yourself. So that when all else fails, if that's what happens, you do have something to rely on. And that really comes down to you having performance that's been practiced to the point where you can do it sort of with your eyes closed, but remember to open to answer the exam questions. It's hard to write with your eyes closed. So bringing it all together, the simple philosophy that we have here at Perform is kind of simple. It's 3 C's. You see them on the rugby jerseys all the time, but that's not ours. And it revolves knowing about the things you need to know, which is the competence you need to bring to an exam room. And that's all about knowing your subject. If you know it, and you're really sure you know it, and believe that you do, the confidence coming from that, together with the knowledge, will allow you to be able to rely on one thing more assuredly than if those things at the bottom of that page were missing. No matter what happens, you can stay composed when the time comes. Because composure in the exam room is what it means to be in the exam room, doing the only thing that matters in the exam room, which is to deliver. You have ice in your veins. So, ice in your veins. You need to be as cold and calculated, if you like, as it's possible to be, and understand one thing and believe it when you're doing it. The thing you walk into the exam room is believing that you can exam. Thank you, Dara.
Fantastic. Ice in your veins. There's the tagline for tonight, I think, everybody. I can exam. Not great English, but definitely has a good meaning behind it. Bernard, thank you so much. I think what we're going to do, everyone, so we ran over time-wise. Look, it's always a good sign. It means that there was a lot more information that was originally intended. Bernard, it was absolutely fantastic. The monkey on the back to learning the exam game, and then with the 3 C's at the end, the confidence, and composure. Try saying that 20 times quite quickly. But what we'll do right now is we're going to run through some questions with you, Bernard. There's a lot of commonalities. We have over 50 questions that have been asked. So I'm going to try and get to as many of them as I possibly can. And then thereafter, if you just hold on to your attention, we will give away the €215 prize and a discount code for everybody on board. So Bernard, I might ask you to stop sharing if that's okay. And you can turn back on your camera and your mic. There you go, on the ball. So I think there's 4 main themes, Bernard, within the questions. And it seems a lot of students have a lot of commonalities between kind of what they're struggling with at the moment. The first one, and seems to be coming up quite a bit, is burnout. What would you say to students that are experiencing burnout at the moment?
Burnout.
Yeah, burnout.
Okay. Burnout, unfortunately, is part and parcel for a lot of people. I experienced that when I was in college, probably in my Leaving Cert as well, because, you know, it's not a sprint, but it's a marathon. And it's a very, very heavy duty marathon. And the last little while has been hard on students because nothing's been normal for the last year and a bit. And certainly school hasn't, and exams haven't. And it gets to the point where you'll have worked very hard because you've been trying to overcome a lot of these obstacles and problems that have been there with not being able to access things the way you could have relied on before. And that was challenging enough. So it's not surprising that people would find themselves feeling a bit burnt out. And it's very important. You're on the flight path to effectively the exams now. Less the study part of the equation by and large. So it's important that you find a way of being kind to yourself and organized to think of yourself as the athlete getting ready for the Olympics. In the end, they're not going to burn themselves through using up all their energy in the last 6 weeks. They're going to be taking it easy without getting lazy. They're going to be consolidating things. They're going to be organizing themselves so that when the time comes, the burnout isn't going to compound itself by being them shot when the time comes for going into the exam room. You can't afford that, but you can afford to take it easier now and structure that. It's important to understand that you structuring your way of managing energy levels and organizing to get through the important things is not you all of a sudden getting lazy and giving up. It's you being clever.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Listen to your body, listen to what it's saying. And really, if you do feel burnt out, it is definitely probably worth taking a little bit of time to yourself, just so you come back all the fresher. I think the analogy with the Olympians and stuff like that is a really good way to think about it.
If the mental part of the burnout is serious enough, don't hold on to it. Share it. That'll help too.
Problem shared is a problem halved. Love it. Probably on the other side of the spectrum now, a few people have wrote in about lack of motivation. How would you advise students might try and increase that level of motivation, especially now with the exams coming up soon?
Motivation is a tricky one because, you know, everybody has their own perspective on what it means for them to be motivated by whatever. And in the end, it's sort of like the same answer to the burnout question. It's very important to park concerns about the future, concerns about whether I want to do this or not, concerns about whether I can do this or not, and just get focused on trying to get organized to do it. Now, that's not me saying something that is just a flippant byline to say, well, it's easy enough. It's tricky and very, very hard. And if for one reason or another, you feel like you've lost something, again, you're talking about looking to find a way of settling a little bit and seeing it as a bit of a game. And the game is to be there to do as well as you can, not to do 10 times better than you expect or want to, but to do as well as you can and allow yourself and be kind enough and organized enough to yourself to work on that. And it doesn't matter that people running up to exams experience lots of things, tragedies, families. At the moment, it's very, very difficult for lots of people. And if you did a list of all the things that can get in the way, you'll find that the list is actually very, very long. And it's very personalized to the kind of family and circumstances of people as individuals. But the nub of it is to be prepared to roll with these things and accept somewhat that, you know, you can get unsettled a little bit, but the rocky road is not something that you need to worry about so much if you're prepared to just stay with it and suspend some of these doubts or suspend some of these concerns about things that are not going to help.
Yeah, I think that makes loads of sense. And look, it's been a rocky year for everyone. Like, it's very important that people give themselves a bit of credit too, and that will always add to your mindset when it comes to actually study and when it comes to the exams themselves. Now, I think you mentioned this a little bit in the presentation, Bernard, but it's worth bringing it up again. A couple of people have brought up, you know, instances where they might become blank in an exam. What would you say to someone that might experience that come June?
Okay. If you were a writer or an academic or anybody that's looking at a blank piece of paper, you'll know that that's probably one of the hardest things to ever look at. And the truth of the matter is, it helped me a lot to understand that actually you could turn it around and say, you know, why is it blank? What's causing this to be a problem for me? It's a very common thing for people in the strain of an exam room to feel like all of a sudden they can't move forward at all. And like I said during the presentation, to look at ways of disengaging even for a moment, whether it's a breath exercise or something that takes your mind off the fact that you feel like you can't move forward. And it's worth exploring because everybody has their own ways of being able to do these things. And if it means disengaging and going on to something else, there are things that are there to be worked on. But again, like everything else, while it's a good question, it's a better question to look for your own personalized answer for, in terms of something you can sort of say, well, I prepared for this. Now that I know I'm experiencing it, what can I do? Even that simple statement. And I used to find that if I had a blank sheet of paper, I wrote a question at the top of it says, why am I struggling with this? And I usually had the rest of the page filled out before I realized that I was blocked. But I don't mean to be flip. It can be something that throws a lot of people. And it's not something to take lightly. If it's something that has been happening before, it's something to pay particular attention to, because you'll want to try and find something that will work for you. You can't leave the exam room, go for a walk. They don't obviously allow those things. But you can close down for a minute if that helps. You can refocus on something else. But the biggest thing is not to kind of get to the point where the blockage. I mean, I've had so many people talk to me about, what can I do? The last time this happened to me, Bernard, I walked out of the room. And happily enough, with people listening to this kind of dialogue with me, they've been able to stick with it and stay in the exam room even when they felt they had nothing to give, and get value for it. So you could say, well, you know, so this is the game. This is the block that Mario and my son couldn't get over. The thing is, well, you know, maybe you can get around the wall.
Yeah, I think that's good. Like, it is very much about knowing yourself and how you deal with those situations in hindsight, as opposed to emotionally reacting to a decision when that time does come. So look, that makes loads of sense. We have loads more questions coming in. A lot of the questions are very specific to some subjects and exams themselves. Now, what I will say, just because we are going a little bit over time, is that Andrea is going to be answering all of your questions over the next few days on our stories on Instagram. So if your question hasn't been answered at this stage, don't worry, it will be answered. Please keep an eye on our stories, on our Instagrams, because look, unfortunately, we just don't have time to go through all of them. Now, what I'll do at this stage is I'm going to announce the winner, and I'm going to talk you through just a couple of things for next steps. If you do feel like Grade Academy is something that could help you over the next few months for your exams, and really just helping you trying to get the grade, as our slogan says, that you deserve. Can I get a thumbs up there from Andrea if you can see that? Okay, you can. Great, happy days. So look, hang in there. There's not too much longer left. We'll get through this nice and quickly. Now look, like, on behalf of all of us at Grade Academy, there's a massive team here of teachers, of, you know, digital marketing specialists, and also just people who are just really, really enthusiastic about the education space, that are really here to help you get the grade that you want come June. Now look, like, with regard to the types of educators that we do have on the platform, we're extremely proud of the teachers and the quality that we do have. Now look, I mentioned this before, for us it's about three things. It's about the quality of teaching, it's about the fact that all of the courses are completely on demand, and that you can look at them anywhere, anytime, and on any device. And look, they're extremely exam focused. We wouldn't be selling you, or we wouldn't be getting you to enroll in a course now if we didn't think they would be effective for you come June. The whole aspect, and when we were planning these courses well over a year ago, we wanted to make sure that whether a student enrolls in the course back in September, or, as I said, 2 weeks before the exam, it would still be something that would be of incredible value. And you'll see it from the free previews. The content is extremely concise, it's exam driven, and we have results to show it. You know, like the average grade increase of 16% from our 3,000 students is really, really testament. And we have tons of options there for all of you. So whether it be maths, Irish, home economics, history, Spanish, we have a course there for you to help you get through the last few months of study. Now look, with regard to the students that we already have on the platform, feedback has been absolutely great. The average score of every course has been an average of 4.8 out of 5. And students really do seem to be reacting well from the courses that we do have and how they're put together, which we're absolutely delighted with. Now, if you do want to check out any of the courses, the first hour of all of them are free on the website. And don't worry, I'll give you that discount that I promised you just a little while ago. But before that, I would like to announce the competition winner. Andrea did a random number generator as Bernard was giving his talk, and the winner that came out was Niamh McCormack. So Niamh has won a basic package, which is 2 course enrollments worth €215. So congratulations, Niamh. Well done. We'll be on to you after. No need to do anything. We will do the work. Now, for the rest of you, don't worry. We got you. what we're giving all of our students tonight, and this is only exclusive to the people that are actually attending the webinar, is we're giving 30% off every course and every bundle that we do have on the platform. Now, this is exclusive to everyone on the webinar. We're not going to release this on our social channels. This is purely for those of you watching tonight. The code is webinar30, and I will give you the 30% off all of the courses and our bundles. Now, the bundles are where you can facilitate multiple course enrollments. And look, we think, and going by the fact we don't give discounts quite often, it's a pretty good deal. Now, to give you an example of how it works, all you need to do when checking out is put in the discount code, and you can save a hell of a lot of money. With regard to the pro package, you get €150 off, and that works out as €58 per course, which is nearly half price of what they are at originally. And it's our way of really just trying to help you guys throughout the next couple of months, because look, it's been a difficult year for all students and to all the parents and the teachers watching as well. So anything that we can do to really help you guys get through the next few months and get the grade that you deserve, we're more than happy to help. After the webinar, I'll be sending you all a post-webinar pack. Now, within that, you're going to get a recording of everything that Bernard talked about earlier on, so you can keep it for later and watch back on some of the points that you might like to revisit. I'll be sending you all the details about discount, and don't forget, it's a limited time until midnight on Sunday, and after that, the code will be invalid. And the last thing, if you have 30 seconds, we would be very, very grateful if you could fill out a feedback form from us. This is our first webinar, and we plan to do many, many more. And any ways that we can really improve on it for future reference, we'd be more than happy to. So we'd really appreciate that. And finally, I just want to say a big, massive thank you. Thank you to Bernard for an absolutely phenomenal presentation and for giving his time and his effort to preparing it. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. If I was in Leaving Cert, I definitely think it would have been something that I wish I would have gone to. Thanks to Andrea for running all the socials. She's the person that is in charge of our Instagram, our Facebook. She is the brains behind all of the back end of the business. And thanks to all of our teachers, and finally, all of you for coming tonight. We are so thrilled to have you. We really hope this webinar was of help. And finally, if you do feel like our courses could be of help, first hour is free. Check them out, and the discount code expires Sunday evening, and it's there, webinar 30. Webinar 30, that's what happens when you talk about having a glass of water. And we'll chat to you soon.